Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar here on tech and nonprofit and creative industries here. My name is Larry Kaptain. I'm Dean of the College of Arts and Media at CU Denver, and very pleased to be your moderator today. So we'll be taking questions as we go along here, and those will be relayed by various means to me, and then I'll read them out to our panels. So let's go around to our panel and have everybody self-introduce. Andrea?
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Dupree. I'm the program director at Lighthouse Writers Workshop. We've been around Denver since the late 90s, and we're an independent literary center, and I'm excited to be here.
We have Marcus Turner.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Turner. I am the Director of Communications at the Arvada Center for the Arts and Humanities. We are a multidisciplinary arts organization that does plays, musical theater, concerts, education classes, and gallery, visual arts gallery space. We're located in Arvada. And yeah, like Andrea, very happy to be here, although I don't have a cool bookcase behind me like she does.
And we have Zach Reese here with us too. Zach?
Hi, everybody. My name is Zach. I'm the marketing and engagement manager at Cleo Parker Robinson Dance, a nonprofit dance organization that's been in 5 Points for what's going on 50 years now. So we're kind of stepping into the cyber world and handling that as it comes. Happy to be here.
Great. Trey Grimes is joining us. Trey?
Good day. My name is Trey Grimes, Technical Director for Cleo Parker Robinson Dance. I work along with Zach at Cleo in the 5 Points area. It's been my pleasure to be with Cleo. I've been with Cleo for 21 years now.
Great. And we have Jeanette Matusiak.
Hi, thank you so much, Larry. I'm Jeanette Matusiak. I'm director of the collaborative of the SCFD. We're a membership group of SCFD-funded organizations. Thanks so much for being part of us today. And I'm going to be shutting off my camera and working the Q&A behind the scenes with Kelly Bogg.
Yeah, and our producer of today's event, Kelly Bogg, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I think producer is an overly generous title, but my name is Kelly. I'm with the Colorado Office of Film, Television, and Media, and we've been producing this webinar series for about a month and a half now, and we've been having a great time. They've been really informative. So like Larry said right in the beginning, if you guys have any questions as you go along, you can see the little Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. Just type in your question and we'll make sure that they get in front of Larry that our panelists can address for the second half of it. So thanks, everybody.
Great. So here we go. We've got a couple of advanced questions, and this first one's really terrific. It's we have some very old VHS footage that we'd like to download to our Facebook page, or possibly have links on our website. Most of the VHS tapes, we also have some DVDs, but we're not quite sure how to digitize. Do we need special equipment, cables, any tips? That's a question I bet a lot of people have. Who wants to take that one? Not everyone at once.
Well, I'll go first.
Thanks, Trey.
Same with Cleo. We're currently in the process of creating the Cleo Parker Robinson Digital Archival Library. 50 years. 50 years of every type of media known to man that needs to be digitized. And the simple answer is yes. You need the correct equipment to digitize the media that you're looking at. If it's VHS, you will need a VHS player to transform it into a digital file. And you want to know what file that end result is for the platform you want to share with. And that's just the skip at the top. Same with DVDs, same with any audio files. you always want to look at what will be your end result first.
Great.
I can't speak for VHS. I haven't encountered one of those in many years. But a DVD itself, if you do have either a Mac or a Windows, some of the newer Macs don't have like a CD drive itself, so you might have to get that accessory. But if you can get the DVD into a computer, or you can access the type of file it is, usually the most universal one's going to be an MP4, where you can kind of pick and place it where you want to. And then it is now on a hard drive or shared space. So that's how I can speak on the DVDs, not so much the VHS.
Yeah, I can date myself and say that in the 1980s, when I was doing lots of research on musical groups in southern Mexico, I had beta cassettes. And beta, there were two forms of videotaping then for the consumers, VHS and beta. And what I would strongly recommend to people is, it used to be you would try to transfer those to a DVD. But now the files that Zach mentioned, the file format of is it MV4 or M4V?
MP4. There's a lot of different ones. I think the most universal nowadays is going to be MP4, and you can kind of save space on quality wise. If you have files like the Apple PC conversation, sometimes you get a .mov, which is going to have a lot higher capabilities and a lot higher and take up more space. But universally, an MP4 is the equivalent to the audio file of an MP3, where it's just audio.
Yeah, and I think one advantage of living today in 2020 is not having to have physical media, because you can put it onto the Google Drive or Dropbox or any other place. It'll be safe. It'll always be there, and that's a big advance that we've had. One thing, before we go on to our next questions, maybe I just ask our folks here in these organizations about how you've transitioned to virtual platforms, because that might answer some questions that people have coming up. Jeanette, do you want to, you're taking notes. Do you want to comment on that, or should we go back to one of our other folks here?
I think going to one of our technology folks on the panel would be great.
Okay, Marcus, do you want to hit that one? Then we'll hear from Andrea.
Sure. I think that, I feel comfortable speaking that there was kind of this universal experience for arts organizations around the world where suddenly in-person gatherings became not allowed, whether it was a guidance or there was a strong recommendation. And so there was this immediate need to shift everything to a format that we could still engage with people who wanted to engage with arts, humanities, literary, dance, whatever type of music programming we had to offer. And at the Arvada Center, the way this whole thing kind of started with us is that we took a look at what platforms we were currently engaging with audiences on, and then decided how we could, or what would be the best way to keep those platforms active, and what type of new content we could get out to those customers, those patrons we have on those platforms. So we have a pretty strong following on Facebook and on Instagram. So we decided to start doing some short form clips. We took a look back at our assets that we currently have digitized. We have been doing archival footage of past shows. And so we started a series that we call AC Look Back, that just is a stroll down memory lane for shows, exhibitions, shows, productions, artists that we've really loved. But then we also started trying to create some new content. And, between me and some other staff at the Arvada Center, some extremely talented creative staff at the Arvada Center, we came up with the idea to kind of vary our productions or the content we were producing between live content and produced and edited content. So for live content, we started using Zoom, where we would gather a group of people together, and from Zoom, we could broadcast directly to our YouTube channel. So we knew even before this happened that YouTube was an area that we wanted to develop more of a viewership. We wanted people to be using our YouTube channel as kind of a go-to resource to figure out what type of programming the Arvada Center has to offer. So in terms of, searching for a silver lining in this, if there's any kind of cockeyed optimist way of looking at it, is that we had the opportunity to drive people by necessity to our YouTube channel and curate that as a way to show people what we wanted to show them. We started producing a live series called Living Room Talkbacks, right at the time when the CDC recommendations were coming down, the Arvada Center was producing a series of plays in our black box theater. And unfortunately, we didn't get to produce the third in a series of 3. We closed the Arvada Center the day it was supposed to open. And so we knew there were audiences waiting and wanting to see this type of content from us. And so we gathered together the actors, the creative staff, the directors for kind of what we called a living room talkback, where they could ask, there could be questions asked, there could be a chance to reminisce. What did it take to make this show work? What was the interesting thing? We had produced Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express, and there was a long conversation about costuming and mustaches, you know, like you do. So people engaged with us in really interesting ways, and we've seen the viewership grow as we continue to produce those live things. And it's in the moment where you had a chance to step back and reflect on what people might want. It always was this continual evaluation about what are people engaging the most with, how can we tap into our current audiences, how can we develop our audiences in this moment, and flexibility and the ability to be nimble has been really key for us.
Great. That was Marcus Turner from the Arvada Center. Let's hear from Andrea Dupree now from Lighthouse. Andrea?
Hi. Yes. So Marcus, you're my idol for having edited and produced video content. We're still working on that. So our mission at Lighthouse is a little bit different. We have workshops for people of all levels. Creative writing workshops are that's our mainstay. We also do big literary events where we bring in authors and little festivals that we do all the time. So we were about a week out from our spring session, which is about 60 workshops plus an additional 20 to 30 youth programs, one-time events, etc., when we were told we could no longer convene. So the first thing we did was delay our workshops for a week and madly learn how to move everything to the virtual format. We had already used Zoom for people who were concerned early on in the virus, in the pandemic. Before anything was shut down, there were people who were like, you know, I better not come. I'm one of the high-risk people. So we had already been using kind of this hybrid Zoom model for our in-person workshops. We decided to go headlong into that with a great staff. I mean, I don't think anybody got any sleep that first week and a half. Like everybody else, I think we panicked and said, oh my God, what are we gonna, I mean, how do we even do this? So a lot of us learned Zoom really fast. And the first thing we did was write there were probably 150, there were several hundred people signed up for workshops. And we emailed all of them, told them about the delay, and we quickly put on our schedule these, what we called Zoom teasers. And the purpose of those were twofold. We wanted to teach ourselves how to use it, and we wanted our community to get comfortable with using it as a corollary to meeting in person. We could not get those up on the schedule fast enough. They just kept filling up. So we did dozens of those, and quickly saw people kind of relent and say, okay, I'm going to stay signed up for this class that starts next week, even though it's not the way I thought it was going to be. And in addition, we started getting people from all over the country and all over the world. We have workshops with people from Bulgaria, from Bermuda. There are people from everywhere in the workshops now. So kind of like what Marcus was saying, some of the things that we've avoided. I always hated video conferencing, for example. A lot of the things we avoided, we started doing. We do these community engagement events in real life, or we used to, that now have moved to Zoom. We run a lot of workshops like at hospitals and libraries that have now moved to Zoom as well. Schools, a lot of different programming, just because of the nature of what we do, is still available to us. And I'll just close by saying we had to move our entire summer literary festival. It's our 15th annual festival. It's our biggest thing every year. we had to move that to Zoom. And I think we were one of the first literary centers to, instead of canceling, to move everything to Zoom. And we didn't know what the effect of that would be, but the effect has been that people are joining us on Zoom. So that starts June 1st. So I may have more insights after that, but there are hundreds of things going on during that month that we're gonna learn a lot. So I'll just leave it at that and hear what others have to say.
Great. Zach or Trey, do you have anything new to add here? Zach does.
Hey, so when Andrew was talking about like reaching out to her organization's specific audience, that was kind of our mentality. We all have different crowds and people expect different things, especially with something like dance, where you feel it in person. So how we went about it was we were able to adjust quickly because we went about it kind of backwards, where we knew all of this was such a wild step away from what we've been doing. So we'll keep it vague. We'll send out an announcement that we have all this digital stuff that we're planning on doing. It's important for our organization that the people that love us and know about us hear from Cleo in this kind of time. So that was important. Like the message behind that, we're not going anywhere. We're going to try to adapt, and we don't know if this is a situation where it's run out the clock or this is a situation where it turns into we're going to evolve and this is going to be the new way of living. So that being said, we did the immediate things first. We did an announcement. We ended up starting to we always meet bi-weekly as a whole staff in the artistic team. We come together. That Zoom thing kind of naturally came to us, and then we got to places of sending out surveys to our audience, like I was talking about, like seeing what kind of stuff they wanted. Did they want the digital class? Is it an extra element if they're being recorded? Does that make them uncomfortable at home? Or if they're on camera? For myself, I don't dance a lot, but I'll do the dance classes in the privacy of my own home. I'm happy to do it. I'm not embarrassed to do that kind of stuff. So there's all sorts of different things we're learning, and we're kind of adapting as we grow. So for example, we've been doing free live classes on our Instagram because we do have a hard-baked following in there where people know what to expect. In that, we've been recording those classes, putting them up for people that missed it to go visit their own. And then we also have different classes that we offer on our side of things. But we're also seeing success in like some of our academy students that come in and they want that interaction, the back and forth, like maybe you're going too fast or be able to talk because there is a disconnect. And I think there is an extra element of when you're communicating like this, it kind of makes it better for anybody. It's to be expected. It's getting a little bit more comfortable. So we're just looking at it as it goes. And if Trey has something to pile on, he's been working on our great podcast. That was another thing. Like we wanted people to hear from Cleo now that she has time to sit down and tell all these great stories and do all that. So I'll close it there.
Absolutely. Correct. Now's the time to anything technically you dreamt of before and you feel the urge to get it out there and share. I wholeheartedly suggest you go for it. There is no right, there's no wrong. When we create content, it comes from VHS, DVDs, YouTube files, old Vimeo files. We take it, edit it, create new content, and put it out to share with the public.
Great. Now, as we're talking and as we're getting input from our panel of experts here, I'm also getting messaging on the screen here. And we got a suggestion about digitizing different media by a visit to Micro Center or Best Buy, which could also be by the web. And I would also suggest Amazon. What you might do, folks out there, is whatever platform you have, if you have a PC, put in PC video conversion or Mac or Apple video conversion, and then you can get the right kind of cables, the right kind of software, and sometimes there's little boxes. I just did a quick review here. Between $40 to $120, you can get a box with cables coming out of it to plug into your computer and to digitize your media. Another question here. In recent years, there's a lot of clips on YouTube of our events, but we're not sure about if there's restrictions about how these clips are used. Facebook has some restrictions about using music sound. So I think that the question the user's asking is about the rights to the music. And I think this would also be the rights to the image in dance or the rights to image for visual arts. So we've got this panel of experts here. What do you say about the rights to the materials and putting it out there on YouTube? Zach?
If I'm talking to, I've never webinared before, so I don't know the etiquette. But there not only our music that we use, but certain pieces of work that are set on our company have different agreements on how this can be portrayed and certain things like that. But I think different platforms call for different focus on that sort of thing. So when we have live instructors using maybe some house music that might not be ours, we have them announce that this isn't our music. We're using this for instructional purposes, and just getting ahead of that sort of thing. If somebody comes to us, we're trying to be proactive on that sort of thing. We operate differently than maybe Marcus, because he's YouTube's a little bit more public. What we're doing right now is on Vimeo, where we have all of our archival footage there for our audience to see behind different privacy links. Paid classes are at our Vimeo public, so it's a little bit more controlled. So I can't speak on that, but when we do put out music, say on a live stream, we announce it and we just get ahead of something like that.
Yeah, if I can just add to that as well. When we do things live on YouTube, for instance, like the living room talkback ideas I was just talking about, we are really careful not to put anything that we might think has a copyright attached to it, whether it's music or image or anything on there. It's all stuff that we've gotten permission from the original owner of that property, of that intellectual property, to broadcast. For instance, we also run, like Zach was just saying, we run dance classes as well at the Arvada Center. And sometimes that does call for recorded music to be played in the video. And those have been used on YouTube. And YouTube has this very funny algorithm about how if you put music up there, it may get flagged as a copyright claim. It may not. It's a little hit and miss. So we've been really digging through YouTube's documentation to figure out how we can make it the best possible thing for us. We've had success just trying to stick with using as much copyright-free music as possible. Our dance instructors have been really nice about trying to figure out what type of music they can use that won't cause it to get flagged. And sometimes you just have to be able to or you have to use specific music for a specific thing. So that's when we have to explore, the original owner of that music. Do we have to pay for the rights to that music? And, ASCAP and BMI, those types of things are where we go to explore that. Another example of this would be that we recently did an edited video from a musical that the Arvada Center produced last fall called Bright Star. And we went to the people who hold the rights to that musical and said, we would like to do this video. And that's how we got the rights to that. And so it's about figuring out where the original owner of that property, intellectual property, is, and seeing what you can do with it. And sometimes, like I was saying before, it takes a little bit of flexibility and kind of thinking on the fly a little bit, because there are certain baked in algorithms on YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, things like that will flag things for copyright, regardless of what your intention is.
Yeah, speaking as a lifelong musician, anyone that, if you're curious about using rights for music, look up the harryfox.com. It's an organization called the Harry Fox Agency. They license the music, and it's surprisingly inexpensive. And it's fair to the composer, and it won't get you in trouble if you register with this agency and pay a small fee to use music on your site. harryfox.com, or the Harry Fox Agency. That's one resource to have. Questions are piling up here. We have a question from someone who's an outreach librarian developing an online program for seniors and adults with disabilities. Many of our patrons enjoy music dance programs. What platform is best to use for music programs, and which one is easiest to use? music platform?
I missed the first part of that question. Sorry.
Yeah, it's someone's an outreach librarian. They're working with seniors and adults with disabilities. The patrons enjoy music and dance programs. What platform is best to use for music programs? So I'm guessing that they're asking what way could they transmit a recording or a live performance? Again, Facebook Live, Google Hangout, Zoom. What have you folks found to be easiest for getting your material out there?
For a live session, or it depends what it's calling for, what the situation is. It sounds like if it's a live class, once again, the Zoom, it seems to be the status quo right now, where people can chime in via mobile on their phone or at their desktop. If they have a camera or not, they can still see and interact with people. I've heard great things about YouTube's live streaming in terms of the immediate feedback you get, as well as the numbers. For an older crowd that maybe already has a Facebook account, there is live stream. I know there's interplay between, maybe you guys can speak on it more. I know there's interplay between both of those platforms and Facebook. So you could get notifications, you can send out notifications ahead time of time that this is going to be happening at this date. They'll get told about it. They can find information at that page, and then they log into whatever, maybe it's a performance, maybe it's a conversation.
Great.
Yeah, I think also it depends also kind of basically what Zach was saying, but what's the starting point of what you want to present? Is it something that you already have captured on film? Is it something that you're presenting new? If it's something you're presenting new, then a live platform such as Zoom may be the way to go. Or if it's a YouTube Live or a Facebook Live, I think it also depends on where you have people following you already. If you have people visiting your YouTube page periodically every week, every day to see what you're posting, then maybe streaming something live to YouTube might be something to consider. Facebook Live also is something to consider if you have people visiting your Facebook page. If you send people directly to your Facebook page for updates and new information, then it makes sense to post some new engaging programming there that people can just engage with.
Great. And Trey, you want to add something?
Yeah, I'd have to piggyback on that. It's all about if you're creating the music, or are you looking for a place to just have a feed of music. If it's just a feed, there are plenty of radio platforms now, Pandora, that take Pandora, for instance, you can actually create your own type of radio station that you feel is best suited for your situation.
Great. One other kind of a follow-up to, and we've been talking about Zoom a lot here. We're on Zoom right now. Someone said my district is concerned with Zoom trolling, and I think they're also referring to what we call Zoom bombing. And this says, I'm interested to learn more about privacy. I can speak to that because our college, we're having a lot of chats with parents of incoming students, and to avoid Zoom bombing. And if you've been on a Zoom where you've been Zoom bombed, it's hackers that interrupt and they put inappropriate pictures up or say inappropriate things. And if you want to avoid that, all you have to do is have people register for your Zoom, just like on this one. When Kelly set this up, she had people register, so we're not going to be intercepted, interrupted, Zoom bombed, or interfered by hackers because we were, it's a closed community right now. But if you put a link out there, somebody is going to pick it up, and then they might use it for nefarious purposes. So if you use the registration for Zoom, then you're going to be fine. I don't think you're going to have any problem there. So I thought I would take care of that one. Let's see. We've got another question. It says, many places are offering a lot of free content, which is great, but it costs time and energy to create. How do we walk the line between trying to generate revenue and keeping in front of our audience? That's a good question. Andrea, do you have any?
Sure. That's an incredible question. We were in a situation like all of you probably are, where A lot of people work for us. I mean, we have a staff of that's smaller, a dozen or a little bit more, but then we have over 70, I think, adjunct type contract workers who are local writers who teach classes. Right now, they're feeling the pinch of some of the university programs cutting back on adjuncts. So we're getting a lot more interest from all over the country, actually, of people who want to teach so they can keep the lights on at home. So we decided that we would do a lot of free programming to get people used to the content. Really what we're selling is the knowledge that our instructors bring to teaching you how to write a novel, teaching you how to write poetry, etc. So that really didn't change because of the format of how we're delivering it. They still read your stuff. They still give you feedback. They still give the same craft talks they would otherwise. So we still charge the tuition for that. One thing that we were able to do is open up some more financial aid, especially with the savings that we had moving our LitFest virtual. We don't have all the the tent, the booze, the food, all the things, flying all the talent out, putting them up. All of that is not happening, right? So we opened up a huge amount of financial aid, which we've never been able to do before because it's so expensive to run a festival. And we had kind of we're not going to reject anyone who wants to be part of this. Some people's finances are still intact. They still support the organization with full tuition, and other people request financial aid. We have been really committed to this forever, but this time we were able to really boost our financial aid. And that keeps our faculty paid, that keeps our staff working. We got really lucky that our entire mission kind of translates well to the virtual space. Still, there were skeptics. I think as they've seen, there are no other opportunities to actually gather in person. They've become more open to this way of meeting and fulfilling their desires as artists. So that's kind of what we've done. We still charge tuition, and we have a lot of free programming for people who, like, we do an essential workers writing workshop that is free. And we do a lot of, our hard times workshop that we've always done with the Denver Public Library for people experiencing homelessness and extreme poverty. That's still free. Everything that was free before is still free. And we're just finding other ways to keep the organization going. Does that answer? I think.
Yeah, that's helpful. Marcus, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. This is the question. I think this is the question that permeates my mind every night. This is the question that I think all people who are involved in arts organizations or any organization that relies on having people gather in person is now, trying to grapple with. So for us at the Arvada Center, I think we took a hard look real quick when this happened as to what programs we could really quickly, revenue-bearing programs, we could very quickly turn virtual and still maintain a similar experience and still ask for people to pay for those programs. For us, that happened to be education classes. So our dance academy, and I look down to the Cleo guys because they know this probably better than anyone, it was able to be transitioned fairly quickly to a virtual experience, supplemented through weekly workout videos that were posted to students on YouTube, and then Zoom instruction, like Zach was saying, students want that type of instruction where you can interact with the instructor a little bit more. And we have been able to retain a number, I would say close to 75% of those students who were registered for Dance Academy courses stuck with us through that. And they've been quite pleased, with the experience we've been able to give them. In terms of performing arts programming, this is where it gets a little more challenging because we're currently examining what it looks like for us to be able to live stream certain programs and have that be charged for people, whether it's a private link, it lives behind a paywall, things like that. But the content that we've been putting out has been more branding content, more visibility content. We felt that was really important for us in terms of our mission and being able to keep us in the eye of our patrons and the public. And this also led into the other side of revenue, which is contributed revenue and not just earned revenue. We were able to launch a fundraising campaign at the beginning of March, and video content has played a huge part in launching this campaign, with appeal videos from our president and CEO, and highlighting the people who really make the Arvada Center special is kind of the angle that we're taking with this, because we want people to know that when they contribute to an organization like the Arvada Center, they're not really paying to see a show, they're paying for the people who create the show. They're paying for the artists, they're paying for the people who build sets, they're paying for the costume makers, they're paying for the experience that they're going to see. And so we've kind of taken this angle that we're calling Humans of the Arvada Center. It's definitely not ripped off from Humans of New York or anything. But if anyone's familiar with that wonderful Facebook account, Humans of New York, if you haven't seen it, check it out. We're just trying to humanize our organization, let people know that we're not just a place where arts happen, we're a place where people happen and where people make the arts happen. So contributed revenue has been a big part of this strategy as well. And it's really trying to find the balance between how can we, in times when earned revenue is going down by necessity, how can we take our resources and make contributed revenue, try to help make up any of those shortfalls as much as possible.
Great. While we've been hearing from this wonderful panel of experts here, I'm getting comments and suggestions in here, and one is about that question about monetizing content on the internet. And there was a suggestion about a firm called Anchor, A-N-C-H-O-R, Anchor. It's a podcast application where you can monetize your podcast with the organization, and there's different mediation or mediators out there that will help you monetize your material and then get a cut of that too. Along those lines, I want to give a quick PSA now. Kelly, I'm going to call on you too in just a second to help out here. But the Colorado Film Commission and the College of Arts and Media, we've identified 5 outstanding arts and media students to form a group called the College of Arts and Media Creative Core. And this will be a complimentary service sponsored by the Film Commission and our college to have students in our 3 areas. One is the music entertainment industry studies, and those students know about copyright law and rights and all that. And then film and TV, and then digital media, such as moving images on the screen. So there's going to be a release of information about how to engage with that. And again, it'll be a complimentary service. Kelly, do we know when that's going to be posted?
We don't have the posting date quite yet. We will be, as soon as it launches, we'll be posting it in our newsletter and on all of our social media accounts. And I'll also just throw our info@coloradofilm.org email into the chat. So if anybody has any questions about it or is interested in getting a student to help them out, they can reach out that way too. Thank you, Dean Kaptain.
Yeah, we think that that's going to be a big help to the community, and I appreciate Mario Rodriguez McGill, the Deputy Film Commissioner of Colorado, reached out to me and said, what can we do to help local organizations? And so we've got a group of 5 very talented, mature students. They'll be able to answer questions and help out in the types of things we've been discussing today. What's the best way to use Zoom to do a performance? Has anyone put up a performance on Zoom yet? One thing I would recommend, and I'm using this today, I've switched from using the camera and microphone built into my laptop to a moderately priced camera and microphone that's separate and plugs in. And I've got to say, I've gotten feedback that not the feedback we're used to, but the remarks from folks that the sound is better, and it's a much sharper image too. So I'd say just springing for a little microphone and camera built into one. Marcus, do you want to add to that Zoom performance?
Yeah, in terms of performances on Zoom, the things that I have tend to see work the best are things where you're determining how the participants in a Zoom call are really going to be interacting with each other. And that will really help you see if Zoom is the best platform for a performance. For instance, we have a performance of a new musical that we're workshopping that's going to be on Zoom. And it just doesn't work to have a singer in one Brady Bunch square and then a piano player playing the audio in a separate Brady Bunch square. So we decided that for the best way to make this work to broadcast via Zoom would be to have the pianist and the singer in the same room, socially distanced, following all the guidelines, and still broadcast via Zoom. So the only person on the screen at that time would be the singer. The pianist would be off the screen. And like you were saying, Dean Kaptain, it does take a lot of audio checking and kind of, you know, for those who do performances, and Zach, and I'm sure Trey, you know all about this, live performances take a lot of tech rehearsals anyway. And that type of intense tech rehearsal still has to play a small part, if not a significant part, in when you're doing these types of live performances, just to ensure that the types of experiences the audience are going to have will be ones that will reflect well upon your organization.
Great. Zach, did you have something you want to add?
So we have weekly, I don't know how many times a week the company and second company rehearses, Trey, probably 3-4 times a week, and they do it all on Zoom. And we're also kind of workshopping our next, I won't call it a performance, but our next step into something like this. And we're calling it Dancer Diaries right now, where one dancer opens up, whether it be a piece of music that speaks to them, a poem, an experience they had, and another dancer interprets it through dance via Zoom. So there's a lot of coordination there. There's an easy record option on Zoom itself, where like this webinar, I'm assuming you could tell it's recording in the top left. That's so you just have it, and there's different export options. There's different gallery views that you can have. I made comments. I've been as somebody that's going to do some of the editing. I sat on one of the rehearsals, and the thing that I noticed is if this person's speaking, this person's dancing, it kind of gets jumbled up. But there's ways you can export those videos where you can put them together to play nice. It depends once again on the format and the environment of like what it's going to look like. And if you want it to have that Zoom thing, and that's okay, people are expecting that kind of thing, right?
Great.
Yes, and I too. You know, you get to that point where you get a little zoomed out. You know, you don't want to keep seeing the same Zoom look all the time. I suggest this is that time, like we said earlier, research, research, research. There are plenty of applications out there that will provide you different specialties, give you different effects, in turn providing you a chance to create new and different digital content that you can share with your membership and with your patrons. Even like what Marcus said before, we looked at what we already have. We were already utilizing Vimeo. Vimeo has a app called Vimeo Create, which one person can do at home themselves with their phone device, and also have special effects happening that they probably thought they never could ever, you know, dream of using or utilizing or manipulating. So research, do the research.
Great. Thanks, Trey. Just reviewing again who we've got on board today. We have Andrea Dupree from Lighthouse, Marcus Turner from the Arvada Center, Zach Reese and Trey Grimes from Cleo Parker Robinson Dance, Kelly Bogg from the Colorado Film Commission, and Jeanette Matusiak from the SCFD. So continuing ahead here, lots of great questions. Space and venue are often critical in the performing arts. Presenting via streaming/audio feels rather different. How does the audience impact your decisions in putting on performances? My guess with that one, the early answer would be, how does a pandemic affect putting on performances? But I think they're asking a post-COVID-19, once things get back to a new normal, how's that going to affect your decisions on on a venue or a live performance versus continuing to do things virtually or online?
Kind of what Zach said earlier. I feel like I'm talking a lot. So if anyone just says, "Hey, just Arvada Center," yeah. So I think we're all in this situation where we're in this wait and see type model, and and we know that there's, or we hope and know that there will be eventually some guidance to give us, to allow us to figure out what we will be able to do within the recommendations of the CDC, the federal government, the state government, local government, whatever that may look like. That is kind of, I think we're all on this precipice of waiting to see what does a gathering really mean. You know, in the good old days, pre-coronavirus, we all knew that a gathering meant people engaging together in a space. And now we need to refine that definition a little bit to say, you know, does that mean 10 people? And, you know, for something like a class or something like a workshop, you know, 10 people could be a really successful enrollment for a speech or a lecture or a class that meets, you know, twice a week or something like that. So that metric of success for having 10 people enrolled in a class like that is really great. In terms of a performance, having a play or a concert or a musical in a 500-seat theater and, you know, having 10 people in that space, the numbers just don't line up to have that financially be feasible. So I don't want to speculate too much, but I have a hunch that I think the model is going to be blended for a good little while in terms of both virtual and live performance, for at least at the Arvada Center, where, like I mentioned earlier, we are considering and exploring options for what it would look like for us to actually have a socially distanced audience inside one of our spaces and then live stream that performance to people while people are experiencing it in person. You know, so people at home may be getting a similar experience, but the people in the house are getting this, you know, basically the same experience as people at home. So, you know, these are all questions that I think that anyone who deals in the performing arts is having at this moment. And until we have some really firm guidance, we're kind of just throwing darts at the wall and seeing. But my guess is that this virtual way of presenting performances is not going to be disappearing anytime soon. So to echo what Trey said earlier, I mean, now's the time to try things, to see what you can do live, what types of things can work, and what types of things do your audiences respond to. And the other thing, since Trey used research, I would say ask your audiences, what types of virtual content would you like to see from us? Or did you like this particular type of content? And let that audience data inform how you move forward. And see, okay, our audiences responded really well to this, but maybe not to this other type of performance. And, you know, and that will help you determine where resources should be allocated in terms of time and people as well.
Yeah. Trey?
And on that note, and know your equipment. Know your equipment, know your limitations. You will run into, technically, you're gonna run into problems. As we see on major networks, they have the best equipment out there, and still audio problems, video problems, they're going to happen. But at least know your equipment. We utilize a Mevo. Mevo is a small camera that provides 4K resolution, great sound, but if you don't have the bandwidth to push it out, you know, once again, know your limitations, know your equipment, and then for the person that's receiving your content that's created, be able to at least offer a small troubleshooting guide. You know, for instance, watch it in this browser, watch it in Firefox compared to Safari. Some people still open their Safari. And you want to be able to say, this is your best chance of viewing the content the way it was meant to be viewed.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Trey. Yeah. Let's see, moving on here. Has anyone been monitoring any programs you've done that have a cost versus free events?
Monitoring in terms of response from the
Yeah,
community.
viewership, people signing up to watch or to participate, if something was free versus if they had to pay a fee for it or some kind of expense.
Well, yeah, I can speak to that a little. We do just bigger events that are free, and they tend to be the things that would be free all the time at Lighthouse. Readings, talkbacks, panels, that kind of thing. That's going to be drawing, in the hundreds, as opposed to a class where you want to keep the integrity of the group smaller. So the response is different based on, what people want to get. If they're looking for, advice from an agent or something like that, they will engage with one kind of programming. Sometimes it's free. Other times the agent might be reviewing their work and meeting with them on Zoom, in which case that's a paid service that has financial aid. We haven't, I think we're still exploring how big an event you can do without losing that feeling of what our organization is about, which is community. And everybody else probably is facing that too. Like, what are the trade-offs of having, we were just talking in staff meeting earlier about, do we want 1,000 people at this thing? Do we want, I've attended readings and literary events that have 15,000 virtually. Is that what we want? Is that what we're about? Or do we stick with, the smaller, more intimate groups? And I think we're not closed to any of the options, but they're very different options and they'll have different responses from the community.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. If I could ask a question of all the panelists right now, would you be able to stay on till 1:15 or do you have to break off at 1 o'clock? You're okay to thanks. That's so generous of you. We're getting so many questions. Our producer, Kelly, said that if we could stay on to 1:15, because there's a lot of interest in that. One thing too, if I could just share some of my experiences as a college dean, I have 1,300 arts and media students, 120 faculty, 30 staff, and we're working very hard to get information to our incoming class in the fall. And we've had 2 parent chats. One had 80, one had 50. So there's a lot of interest in parents to hear from us and learn more about what's going on. And one thing I'm seeing happening is that in March, the online, there was quite a negative reaction, like, this isn't what we paid for, this is, but that's kind of changing, not just in our own college, but reading articles and polls that I think parents are really thinking about right now, what it would be like to have all their students back close together in August when we don't have a vaccine. And so I'm kind of hearing that thread in here about safety, recognizing what the government, what the CDC says. So again, it's really interesting for me to see the change that's occurring in a shift. Not that the online is okay. Frankly, I think we're finding out there's a lot of benefits to it, but we're going to have to keep doing a good job of that to have people have confidence in that. But along those lines, someone had a question here about a class or a group size that seems to work online. What makes classes or group discussions go well? And I want to hear from the panel because I don't want to dominate, but when we had 80 parents on, we had to have a staff of 3 or 4 to field the questions like Jeanette's doing and to produce it like Kelly's doing. So I want to hear from the panel here too, but one thing I can say is, and these aren't highly technical positions, but you really need a back end to take the chat questions like we're doing today, relay them to the moderator, and then provide some sort of feedback as things are going along. So I just think that's important for everybody to know that you really can't go it alone online. If you do, it could create all kinds of delays and difficulties. So ideal sizes. Any comments on 10 or 100 or 1,000?
Dean Kaptain, I think that you nailed it by saying what you said, is that you know, the nice thing about these platforms, these online platforms, is you can go up to thousands of people, having them witness your programs. And, you know, like Andrea said earlier, people from Bermuda, Barbados, Bulgaria, there were lots of B countries in what you said, I think. So, you know, being able to experience your program is a wonderful thing, but it is about staying within your own means. And, you know, being able to, when we were doing these living room talkbacks I was talking about earlier, it became really evident to us before we even launched it that we needed to have a tech person running the show behind the scenes, because we were showing media, we were showing images, we tried to show videos, we were sharing people with, or we sharing files and links with the people who were engaging. And I think that having someone who knows the platform you choose, live on the backside of it, and help make it run, then that you could put your class size or your lecture size up to a couple hundred, maybe even a couple thousand, if you deal with it in a strategic way.
Yeah.
Andrea, I'm sure you have things to say about that too. But
I concur with what you said. I think we have usually at least one person on call, because the other part of it is also the people who can't get in. You know, there's always people who can't get in, and that's happening live, right? And the instructor is doing what the instructor does, and even the facilitator, if there's a moderator, they're engaged with everybody who's shown up. So what about the people who, for whatever reason, can't seem to get in? So we have at least a couple staff on call at all times. And Jenna, who runs so much of the programming, just put together a schedule for LitFest where there's even positions we're signing up for called the Hand of God, which is like not an on-camera position. It's somebody is in the back end just dealing with all the contingencies. And then there's also backup for the Hand of God. So we're getting big here. And I think being prepared is the best thing you can do. Letting people know what do you do if you freeze out or your instructor freezes out and disappears. You know, just having those kind of guidelines in place for people is really helpful.
Yeah, you know, I just got a message from our engineering dean this weekend here at CU Denver, and he forwarded a message that Zoom is hiring 500 software engineers for research and development in Pittsburgh to be near Carnegie Mellon and Phoenix to be near Arizona State University. So, you know, so much in life is changing, and 500 engineers, I mean, that's a lot of investment there. So this Zoom thing is seems to be ongoing. And I think for our audience and participants today, I think that's a sign that quality is going to keep improving, and they're probably going to do a lot of adapting. For instance, to, you know, how could we have the 6 or 7 of us here together on one screen rather than have the Brady Bunch boxes there? My guess is that they're going to come up with something there to blend the boxes and have people on in one picture there. You know, along that line, someone's asking what sort of budget is necessary for hiring tech that you cannot do yourself? How hard is it to learn on your own? Live streaming, ? Or creating produced recorded programs? So yeah, I think the person that asked that had several questions with they're wondering about, well, should I hire out or should I sit down and learn how to do this myself? That seemed to be the essence of that question. Trey, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think what you'll find, once again, research first, of course, but what you'll find is you will run into areas where you'll need the expertise of your tech team. When it comes to production, I know for Cleo right now, the main thing that's bothering her, even with our Zoom capabilities, is of course the lighting, the backgrounds, the audio. These are all things that they can't be addressed from a simple laptop. It's something that software developers haven't totally gotten all together just yet. I think we're in that phase of we're utilizing what's available. We're grateful for what's available, but of course we do want something different. I know I'm constantly searching for a different look for our dancers. So the budget, it's going to depend on, once again, every production will be different. It's going to depend on what you're trying to accomplish, how you're trying to accomplish it, what format. All these variables will come into play. I suggest, the main suggestion is get your entire plan together and reach out to at least 3 different arts organizations, such as ours, and get the available pricing, what services you're looking for, and what that final outcome will be.
Can I pile on to Trey here? As far as investment versus like bang for your buck, a lot of the video editors or these creative people that make this kind of content, they are familiar with a creative suite called Adobe Creative, and you can get a special nonprofit price for a year. And I just, with how I see things going and more, it's valuable to have somebody that knows how to use those things, whether it's creating a flyer or a run of show, whether it's doing video, like it has access to all of that, photo editing. It's how a lot of these people use it, and being familiar with it is going to help. It's not as scary as it sounds. Everything when you need to know, from the little how to move this thing, that's all on YouTube nowadays. And getting better at that is just going to pay off in the long run. I'm happy I have that background, just so I can transition to more content and more, let's put all of this stuff there. But it's pretty universal, and it helps with printed stuff in the future if that's something that your organization does, or if you want to do more video and get more specific and get more creative. Trey was speaking on how we're tired of this in the box thing. We have a exciting upcoming project where we're trying to shatter the barriers on it, and we're putting in that extra time. So it's a front end thing, but if it's $400 compared to getting a new person that has that kind of background, it might be a good idea to have somebody on your team to be able to know that in-house. Our organization before I worked there was kind of had different people doing different things, and it's good to have somebody that knows what you guys do, your messaging and like your image and all of that. Also creating the things, because it kind of keeps it in a line more so than not.
Yeah, I like that Zach mentioned Adobe Creative Cloud. If I were to make any recommendation to organizations, it would be to subscribe to that so that your staff can use that. I got to tell you that the changes, I guess I'm a what they would call a fossil, because I've been doing digital video for more than 20 years since it came out in the mid 90s. And you know, it used to be so esoteric that it would take myself and then some help to figure it out and all that. Now, really, some of the most sophisticated tools are really designed with the consumer in mind, as like DIY, do it yourself. So yeah, Adobe Creative Cloud would be a real good investment, because that's a suite of everything from, you know, making PDFs to illustrations to Photoshop to Premiere for videos. It could be a real good investment. One thing I want to do is mention the closed captioning option that we have. The link's in the chat area. So organizations can use Relay Colorado for free. You might want to check that out. Folks are asking about what we do in live capacities. Someone says they've been researching various online video and audio platforms, but there's significant latency issues. What options for live engagement are you all using, and how do you see this process evolving? Let me address latency for a second, because we had our final senior film projects the other night. It was supposed to be a big live event called Cinefest, and instead it went online. And we had to use Zoom for the people that were involved. And we had to have a separate computer for a live YouTube broadcast of the award ceremonies and showing the student films. And latency it really boils down to the kind of digital time it takes and the delays that there are inherently in the way that the computers process information. And it could also be affected by your bandwidth that you have and how strong your Wi-Fi signal is and how many of your children are gaming at the time that you're trying to work from home online. So does anyone want to say anything else about latency?
I don't want to say much about latency, but I do want to say, as an organization, maybe out of all of us, that is the most analog and the least, I don't want to say capable, but our capacities have never been in the video or photography world like the dance and performing arts organizations. And it was possible for us because we have some people on staff who just happen to know things, like Manuel Aragon, who runs our community engagement program. Also, he's done TV shows or web shows in the past, so he does our video editing. And Andrea Torres, who we just hired, she's never actually been to Lighthouse since she got hired. She's our new communications person, and she comes from a background of video and that kind of technology. I would just say to anybody who's stressing right now about coming up with a budget for tech and beautifully produced videos, I think the more important thing is staying in contact with your communities. And I think everybody's really forgiving right now about the DIY aspects of what we're doing. Manuel, who runs our weekly happy hours, he knows a lot of tech, but he actually keeps it kind of jagged. He's talking to the panelists as people check into the room. They're, kind of shooting the breeze for a while, and then he gets things started. And I think that gives people somewhat of a feeling of what it's like to actually be together and overhear things and show up early and meet the people who are around. So I think we all want to get toward having a more seamless presentation in this virtual world, but depending on what your organization does, I don't think you need to necessarily worry about going outside of the organization for the tech purposes yet. That's just been our experience. People are forgiving.
Yeah. I think what Andrea just said, one thing I gleaned from that is it's an oxymoron to talk about high resolution and quality video online, because it's always going to be kind of scratchy, kind of blurry. And, one thing I read a few weeks ago, a psychologist had a lot of clients that were saying that they feel disoriented, they're getting headaches and so on, and they've been on Zoom all day. And one thing that Zoom doesn't allow us to do is to see each other's eyes. And so like right now, I can look at Marcus or Andrea or Zach or Trey here, and I can kind of see their eyes, but not really. It's going through all kinds of different filters and channels. And so that confuses our brains, because our brains are used to seeing people's eyes, taking cues from their faces that we can't do on Zoom. So I don't know, I get zoomed out a lot of days. Some days I'm 8 or 10 hours on Zoom. Yeah. Speaking of Zoom, someone's asking about other platforms, Google Meet, StreamYard, or free platforms I'm seeing here. Also, here's a good offer, because it says free. Technical questions you can send to Trey, Trey, at cleoparkerdance.org. Trey at cleoparkerdance.org. Generous offer. Thank you, Trey, for technical support. But anyone else, do you want to comment on what luck you've had? I've got to admit, I've gone on some other platforms, and I won't mention them, but they haven't worked, and they've switched to Zoom after about 5 minutes of people not being able to connect. I don't know if anyone's had those experiences either. But does anyone want to talk about other services that they may have tried that are free?
Sounds like a resounding Zoom. One thing we did when we came together, though, and I think we all agreed on, was the length of a Zoom call and like how much you get out of it. Like we all thought like the hour mark was resoundingly the good amount of that you can take away from it without the reality of it setting in. I don't know. Somebody else can speak on it. When we were talking earlier, I remember we discussed that.
Yeah, thank you. You know, just a couple more questions here, and we got to sign off. But one is a question. They say it's for Andrea, and I am planning to teach painting online. Do you have suggestions about giving individuals feedback? I'll say I have a family member that's taking painting online because she was doing it before the pandemic hit, and now the teacher's like continuing online to give critiques and so on to painting. But Andrea, they mentioned you there. So do you have any questions about monetizing painting instruction from the aspect of the teacher?
I mean, the teacher should get paid for their expertise.
I think that the question is here, yeah.
I do believe in, we set aside some of our budget, I don't even know how much, to paying instructors to do free things, just to get people, because we've always felt that our faculty is our greatest asset. I put them against any kind of MFA program in the country. We bring in a lot of incredible visiting authors with huge names, and they sometimes get great response, but our faculty always gets great response. They're just really good. So putting that on display, like with a little teaser for here's what a painting class would look like, and paying that instructor for doing it, but then not charging the participants just so they can see what it's like, I think makes a lot of sense. It can be low stakes. It can be a 45-minute thing. And you could limit the size of the class that's involved so they get a real sense of, you would get this kind of critique, you would get this kind of feedback. This is what the community would feel like, you know, and when compared to not having anything, often that sells itself. Do you want a deeper experience? Do you want this to continue? If you do, you can sign up for my class and here's how you register. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense and it seems to work really well.
Great. Well, folks, we're coming to the end here. Oh, Marcus, did you want to get another word in?
About painting, specifically on a painting class. The Arvada Center did pretty much exactly what Andrea just said, is that we had one of our watercolor painting instructors do a Facebook Live and then a YouTube Live sample class online that anyone could tune in and watch. Now, that was not her giving feedback to participants necessarily. It was her just walking through the process of creating that watercolor piece. And then that was kind of a preview as to what type of work someone taking her class might be. And now we've shifted her to doing some of her watercolor classes via Zoom. So it's a little bit Bob Rossian, you know, in a way where she's painting and then people can ask questions and they can say via the chat, or even if it's just on Zoom, you know, because I think going back to the number of people to make it successful, in those classes, we try to limit it between like 7 to 10, I believe, maybe up to 12 people painting all at once, so that the instructor has the ability to interface with those people and doesn't necessarily need that additional tech support behind the scenes. So if someone's asking a question, you know, they can just speak it. They don't have to worry about chatting it because they have their hands occupied and, you know, they're painting. And that type of format seems to have worked well. And I know other arts organizations like Foothills Art Center, a little shout out to them because we share this instructor, have done these things as well. So.
Great. Well, it's time to wrap here. I want to thank our producer again, Kelly Bogg from the Colorado Film Commission, Janet Matusiak, who's been transcribing all the questions and so on from SCFD, the dynamic duo from Cleo Parker Robinson Dance, Trey Grimes and Zach Reese, Marcus Taylor from the Arvada Center, Andrea Dupree from Lighthouse, yours truly,
Turner.
Larry, College of Arts and Media. And did I get something wrong?
Turner. My last name's Turner.
Marcus Turner. I won't even ask what I said. Marcus, thank you. Marcus Turner from Arvada Center, Andrea, and it's been great today. If you missed any part of this, it's going to be available on the YouTube channel later today at coloradofilm.org/webinar-series. coloradofilm.org/webinar-series. Okay? So thanks all. Look for the Cam Creative Core out there for help. Take up Trey on his generous offer of tech support, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.